For being the third movie in this Creed series, this film has a lot of firsts. The first movie in the series where Rocky is absent, a directorial debut for Michael B. Jordan, his first time behind the camera. I had a lot of questions because of these firsts going into this film. Would Creed be able to separate himself from Rocky's shadow? Does Michael B. Jordan have what it takes? Can he tell a good, engaging, emotional story? And although Creed 3 is a good time, it gives me that feeling of wanting to step into a boxing ring, something that every single Rocky and Creed film has done in the past. It doesn't deliver anything new and is oftentimes very predictable in an otherwise solid entry into the Creed series. The movie picks up years after the events of Creed 2, and Creed is in the ring for the last time before he retires. After taking a crap ton of shots to the head, an uncanny amount. I'm not sure how this dude doesn't have a concussion, just collapses to the ground. Anyway, after taking a crap ton of shots to the head, Creed finds the dude's weak spot and defeats his opponent, cementing himself as one of the greatest fighters of all time. He retires at the top of his game, a legend having nothing else in his career to prove. We then get a look at what life is like for Creed in retirement, and it's spending a lot of time with his family, playing tea time with his daughter and checking in with his wife in the studio, producing music. We then see Creed going to the gym where his protege, Felix Chavez, the heavyweight champion, is training for his next fight against Victor Drago, the main antagonist from the second film. After a training session getting Felix prepped, Creed goes to his car where he is met by a familiar face. Dame Diamond Anderson, an old friend of Creed's from back in the day before he was taken in by Mary Ann. Dame has spent 18 years in prison following an incident with Creed back when they wwere children. Well, I guess Creed was like a teenager, 13, 14, 15, around that age, and Dame was a little bit older. But they were young back then. Dame has come back from prison looking for a chance to get back into boxing and win a title. His goal, his dream is to be the champion, and the time is now. He's getting old and he knows this. He knows he can't rise up through the ranks over a course of many years and work his way to the top. He knows he has to get there now. His time is running short. Because he knows his time is short, he's getting old, he asks Creed to help him get into the ring. Creed is understandably hesitant. This guy, for all he knows, this guy has no professional boxing experience. Yes, he is, I think it's the Golden Glove winner back before he was in prison. And yes, Creed has seen him fight 18 years ago. But does this dude still have it? Does he have what it takes to be in the professional ring? It's a big risk to put Dame in the ring, especially in a professional setting. So Creed's hesitant. He doesn't think he's ready. But after a coincidental accident to Drago, where he is beat up by a dude at a party, Creed seems to have no choice but to put Dame up against Felix. At this big fight, Dame beats the crap out of Felix. Win by knockout. Were there some illegal blows in the fight? Yes, absolutely. But we're gonna ignore that. He wins. He's the champ. He's got everything he's ever wanted. You think that would be enough, right? To be the champion. You think he'd be satisfied with all that, but no. He goes and attacks Creed's legacy. He goes and attacks his family. After all these attacks from Dame directed towards his family, his legacy, his reputation, and after the discovery that Dame actually set up the attack on Drago, Creed has no choice but to step out of retirement and to step back into the ring to settle the score with Damien once and for all. I gotta say, for his first directing gig, Michael B. Jordan does a great job. Although the film does remind me a lot of Rocky IV and Rocky V. But even if it is kind of similar, it's still entertaining and it's still loads of fun to watch. The performances across the board were great, which is kind of a shame because I feel like every single character within this movie, except for Creed and Dame, are sidelined. side plots and side characters aren't really dove into a lot in this film. The focus is on Dame and Creed. And speaking of which, I think the tension between the two is one of the highlights of the film. I mean, in every scene between Dame and Creed, I feel like a fight's about to break out. I mean, there is definite tension. And I gotta give major props to Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan just for their way to deliver these scenes and to create that tension. And although it was a highlight, I wish we went more into Dame. Also, I wish there was more time spent on side characters and side plots. Felix Chavez, I think, is a very interesting character. This is Creed's protege. This is the heavyweight champion. And we don't really get a whole lot with him, especially after the fight with Dame. I mean, he almost completely disappears. We hear he's in the hospital, and then we don't see or hear from him again until the final fight scene. And then he kind of pops up. I wish we got to see more of Felix and him be more of a factor for Creed to get back into the ring. I mean, to see the way his protege and most likely his friend just got absolutely owned by someone he helped enable to get into that position to beat up his friend. I think seeing his friend in the hospital and then seeing how Dame is talking about Creed and Felix, I wish was more of a driving force to get Creed back into the ring. I think that could have been really interesting and could have added a little bit more of development between Creed and Felix, their relationship. And if there is a Creed 4, it most likely will be Creed in that sort of mentor role. So I don't know why they wouldn't just sow those seeds a little bit here right now. Also, Creed's mom, Marianne, having strokes. Like, we saw that in the very beginning of the film, and you know she's gonna die. I mean, the second I heard stroke, I was like, oh my gosh, they're killing her off in this movie. I mean, the third movie in the Rocky series killed off his trainer, so, you knew someone big in Creed's life was going out in this film. Although, I will say, even though the setup wasn't great, the final death scene for Mary Ann, I thought was done phenomenally well. The way she fluctuates between seeing and speaking to Adonis and then speaking to Apollo, it was really heartbreaking. Kind of tugged at the heartstrings, I thought it was done really well, but I wish the setup and the things that took place before that scene were done a lot better and were focused on just a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be a main central subplot, but I feel like it should have tied in to the main story a little bit more. And although I do think killing off this character can do phenomenal things in terms of the story in this installment of Creed, it's not connected very well and it's not focused on enough to be given that emotional impact for the overall story. The other main problem I had was how predictable this movie was. Nothing was ever in question. Like, you knew the second Creed retired, he's gonna step back into the ring. You also know the second Dame shows up that he's who Creed's gonna fight at the end of the movie. But then you also know that once Dame steps into the ring with Felix, that Dame's gonna win, because you have to set him up as a legitimate threat to Creed. You also know Marianne's gonna die the second you hear a stroke's gonna happen. And although it's very predictable, it's still very entertaining to watch. This doesn't have to be this super twisty movie. That's not what any Rocky movie I feel like has ever been. And this one doesn't have to be either. But if you're gonna market the movie with Dame v Creed, then spend majority of the movie setting that up. Not events moving towards that, but the actual training and the actual preparation into fighting Dame. Why is he a threat? Why is he a challenge? This movie, I feel, would have done a lot better if it focused on the actual fight of Creed v. Dame. Not just their relationship, but the fight itself. The actual steps Creed has to do to prepare to fight Dame. Like, he is at least a year into retirement. You gotta prepare a lot to get back into that ring. And then we get a brief little montage that we always get in the Rocky series, which was still great, but I wish there was more. Like, he suffered all these injuries, all these hard hits, and he's also has age catching up to him. He's got a lot to do. There's a lot of new challenges that he has to pass to fight Dame. Also, establishing Dame as a threat, showing him in one or two more fights. That 1-0 record, yes, he beat Felix, but he also beat him with a lot of illegal hits. we don't know how much of a threat he actually is to Creed. Creed, who's beaten Drago. Like, we saw what Creed did in the last film. We need to be thoroughly impressed with Dame to be able to go, oh, he's an actual threat to Creed. And because that threat's not really established, that final fight is never in question. Speaking of the fights, they aren't it in this movie. I don't know if it has to do with all the slow-mo in it or the fact that during the final fight they like go to a different plane of existence. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, yeah, it's kind of cool to see what's going on within their minds. It kind of lost me though. Especially since we go from like round 1 to round 12 just like that. The fights felt very much like a video game. Just the fact that they were able to take blow for blow for blow, and there seems to be little fatigue. They're able to take a ton of hits and then they're able to dish out a ton of hits. I have no problem with it going 12 rounds. I have no problem with them dishing out a lot of heavy blows, but show the effects that actually has on the fighter and how it's swinging the fight one way or another. How it's going to Creed's side or how it's going to Dame's side. I think that's another problem I have with these fights is you never know who's actually winning until one just drops down on the floor. You never know. Another thing I'll say is a concern I had was not having Rocky within the film. And Creed 3, to my surprise, did fine without Rocky. Yes, I still missed him. Yes, I wish he was still in this film. And it was kind of weird not hearing about him very much or even seeing him at the funeral. Like, I'm pretty sure Rocky would show up to his best friend's wife's funeral. Like, that seems like something Rocky would do. And we don't see him. Yes, I missed him in the film, but the film does exceedingly better than I thought it would do with his absence. Creed 3 is better than I thought it would be. It does a good job at taking Creed out of Rocky's shadow and having him stand on his own. And it's just a solid debut from Michael B. Jordan behind the camera. However, the film is pretty predictable and doesn't directly hit the mark on an otherwise great story idea. If this is the end for the Creed series, I think it's a somewhat solid ending. Yet, at the same time, I feel like this film opens the door for a pretty interesting fourth installment. And if that's the case, I look forward to what that next story is going to be. But that's about it from me. Let me know down in the comment section below what y'all thought about Creed 3. Thank you all so much for watching. I love y'all so much. And until next time, peace out, bro skillets.